Welcome to a special report from the Human Error News Network. If you're leading a team, managing a crisis, or, making high-stakes decisions where failure literally isn't an option, you've got to listen closely to what we're unpacking today.
Picture this. It's October 1968, Yosemite. Jim Madsen, a super experienced rescuer, is rappelling 2,500 feet down El Capitan to save two stranded climbers. He's got all the right gear, all the training, but somehow he slips off the end of his rope and falls to his death. Or think about the seasoned experts on Mount Everest back in 1996, deliberately marching straight past their strict turnaround times and right into a deadly storm. Why? Why on earth do the most experienced, highly trained leaders often lead their teams and themselves straight into disaster? It totally defies logic, right? But there is an answer, and it's probably going to make you audit your own leadership style today.
Just look at this data on the annual death rate on Denali. These aren't rookies making silly beginner mistakes. A massive chunk of these fatalities, they're seasoned experts. This proves a chilling reality. Extreme pressure and high-stakes environments consistently hijack even the most elite decision-making. Before we really get into the weeds of exactly why this happens, make sure you're subscribed to the network so you never miss one of these critical briefings. Because the truth is, it doesn't matter how much expertise you have, the environment you're operating in can silently rewire your brain without you even noticing.
All right, part one, your brain under pressure, the heuristic trap. So, we all like to think we make totally rational choices, right? We analyze the data, weigh the options, execute. Boom! But mental energy and time are in incredibly short supply during a crisis. To compensate for that, our brains secretly rely on mental evaluatory shortcuts. These are called heuristic traps. They operate right at the threshold of our consciousness, kind of like unconscious advertising, tricking your brain into making really poor decisions in risky environments. Think of it like driving your daily commute on absolute autopilot. Your brain knows the route, so it just checks out to save energy. And hey, that works great for a Tuesday morning drive. But relying on that exact same autopilot in a complex, unpredictable environment, that's like unknowingly driving your commute straight into an active avalanche zone. You won't even realize you're in danger until the snow is already burying you.
Moving on to part two, the fatal descent statistics, an autopsy of human error.
As an analyst digging through decades of mountain rescue operations and high-altitude disaster reports, I always look for the hidden patterns of human error. It's time we do an autopsy on these cognitive failures to see exactly how your mental systems break down when the pressure spikes. This model right here, the Wiccan's cognitive model of information processing, visually deconstructs the whole thing. Look at the top, limited attentional resources. You only have one small pool of mental energy. Under pressure, you have to use that same tiny pool to perceive threats, maintain situational awareness, make a choice, and actually execute a response. If just one of those stages demands too much attention, the others simply shut down. You literally stop perceiving danger because your brain's processing capacity is completely maxed out.
And that pool of resources shrinks drastically when adverse effects hit. Up in the mountains, we're talking extreme cold, sleep loss, hypoxia. Hypoxia is basically a lack of oxygen to the brain. Imagine trying to run a full marathon while breathing through a cocktail straw. That's hypoxia for you. Add freezing temperatures to the mix, and your working memory just fails. It's exactly like an old computer freezing up and buffering in the cold. Now in the boardroom or the emergency room, these adverse effects look a bit different. It's sleep deprivation, extreme financial pressure, maybe even your own massive ego and mission drive. But the end result, the system crashes just the same.
Which leads us to a staggering, honestly terrifying number, 4-to-1. On Mount Everest, the ratio of deaths during the descent compared to the ascent is a staggering 4-to-1. On Denali, it's 2-to-1. It is a consistent, undeniable trend. The higher the peak, the greater the relative hazard of dying on the way back down. No way around it.
So what does this tell us about the leader's mindset? Well, on the ascent, you're on high alert. You are totally goal-driven, hyper-vigilant, just dialed in. But the very second you hit that summit, the moment you actually achieve the mission goal, the adrenaline completely drops off. Fatigue washes over you. Complacency sets in. Your brain subconsciously checks the mission accomplished box, which drastically lowers your situational awareness. The journey home is unequivocally the highest risk period for any team leader. Period.
Dr. Ken Kamler, who was the physician on that tragic 1996 Everest expedition we mentioned earlier, observed this danger firsthand. He noted that familiarization and prolonged exposure without incident leads to a loss of appreciation of risk. Let that sink in. When you survive previous close calls, or when you frequently operate in dangerous environments without failing, your brain literally deletes the warning signals. You become completely deaf to the alarms.
Let's dive into Part 3, Unmasking the Heuristic Traps, a collaborative roadmap.
Here's the deal. We absolutely cannot rely on our instincts when our instincts are precisely the thing leading us off the cliff. We need to unmask these traps together before they strike. Researcher Ian McCommon identified the most common heuristic traps, and honestly, they are lethal. Take the familiarity trap, for example. Back in October 1999, an expert team was navigating a slope on Dao Lugri. Because they had traveled that exact same route for weeks during setup, their brains just automatically labeled it safe. They completely stopped analyzing the actual present-day wind conditions. These were heavily trained experts, yet their familiarity with the terrain entirely negated their safety protocols. They walked directly into a textbook avalanche trap, and 6 people lost their lives. Then you've got the commitment trap, often called summit fever, which is being so locked onto a goal that you completely ignore catastrophic warning signs. Or the expert halo effect, where a team blindly follows a charismatic leader right into a fatal error, just assuming the leader sees something they don't.
All right, Part 4, the Team Leader's Action Checklist.
So, how do we fix this? You have to consciously disrupt these subconscious patterns. To do that, let's look at the absolute best, Mountain Rescue Association field team leaders. To maintain situational awareness, you have to actively structure your environment. First, force hourly breaks. Don't wait until someone is totally exhausted. Mandate the stop to assess the conditions. Second, you've got to actively monitor your team's mental and physical state. Are they being unusually quiet? Are they making sloppy mistakes? Third, and this is absolutely crucial for you as a leader, step back from the hands-on micro details. If you're down in the weeds tying knots or crunching micro data, you physically cannot see the avalanche coming. You must protect your limited attentional resources to monitor the macro situation. And fourth, keep your base camp or your external advisors constantly updated. Use outside perspectives to break up your internal groupthink. Honestly, take a screenshot of this checklist right now. Seriously, use it on your very next project.
Finally, Part 5, Surviving the Journey Home, Empowering the Leader.
Ultimately, you have to remember that a leader's true goal is never just the summit. It's getting every single member of the team home safely. We get so obsessed with the ascent, with the product launch, the big acquisition, that we completely forget the descent. And sometimes achieving that true goal means doing the hardest thing imaginable. Think back to 1938. An American expedition was just 500 feet from the summit of K2. They were literally on the verge of making history. The leader, Fritz Wiesner, was consumed by summit fever. He desperately wanted to push forward. But Sherpa Pasang Dawalama recognized the deadly trap. He saw the late hour, he saw the deteriorating conditions, and he forcefully defied his leader. He put his foot down and flat out refused to let them continue. By actively breaking the expert halo effect and fighting that commitment trap, Pasang Dawalama saved all of their lives. He knew the summit simply wasn't worth the ultimate price.
As we close out this special report from the Human Error News Network, I want you to look really closely at your own operations. Your brain is wired to take the easy route, to trust the familiar, and to prioritize the immediate goal over the long-term reality. The question isn't if you will face these biases, it's when. So what hidden cognitive traps are sitting in the room, quietly waiting for you in your very next high-stakes meeting?